What if everything you thought you knew about Custer's last stand was wrong? For nearly 150 years, history has painted the Battle of the Little Bighorn as a tragic clash of hubris and overwhelming native resistance, a dramatic final stand by the flamboyant General George Armstrong Custer. We've heard the headlines. Custer split his forces. He underestimated the enemy. He died a martyr, or a fool. But buried beneath that familiar legend lies something more. A voice history chose to ignore. What if one man saw it all? What if he wrote it down, and no one listened? Today we bring to light a forgotten eyewitness account, a private letter from a soldier who rode with Custer until the very end. Theodore W. Golden, a veteran of the Seventh Cavalry. In 1904, long after the smoke had cleared and the monuments had been raised, Golden revealed his truth in a quiet, personal letter. He didn't write it for fame. He wrote it to set the record straight. This is not just another dusty artifact. This letter challenges everything. It questions Custer's judgment. It exposes devastating mistakes in the Army's strategy. And it suggests that one man's personal pride may have doomed hundreds. Was Custer reckless, or was he trying to redeem himself after a fall from grace? Why did he refuse reinforcements and rush into battle ahead of schedule? And what did he say to his men in those final moments before they vanished into the ravines, never to return? Stay with us, because this story doesn't just change the way we remember Custer, it changes the very meaning of Little Bighorn. Before we continue, take a moment to tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. And if this video is interesting, if it stirs something deeper, make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow I've saved something extraordinary just for you. Now, what did a lone survivor see that history chose to forget? Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you might just question everything about the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Theodore W. Golden, a veteran of the Seventh Cavalry, took a secret with him to the grave. As one of the last to witness General Custer's final moments, his first-hand recollections remain a priceless fragment of history. In 1904, he committed his memories to paper in a personal letter, an account we bring to light today. I received your letters dated July 28th and August 2nd, requesting an account of my experiences and knowledge of General Custer's final battle. The years that have passed since that fateful day have surely dulled some memories, and the limited time at my disposal compels me to share only a fragmented narrative. I read your articles on the subject, along with the entire series, with deep interest, and I'm pleased to hear they will soon appear in book form. In response to your request, I can affirm that I served under General Custer from my enlistment in 1873 until his death. I took part in every campaign alongside him and the regiment, except in 1875 when I was assigned to duty in the South. In spring 1876, we learned of an expedition against the Sioux involving 3 major military columns. Soon after, our orders came and we moved from Shreveport, Louisiana to Fort Lincoln in Dakota Territory. General Custer was in Washington testifying before Congress and rejoined us only shortly before we set out. Having been detained under arrest in Chicago during my travel from Washington, I will omit the details of our march from Fort Lincoln. True to form, Custer's energy and determination shone as he swiftly organized the troops and led them toward the Rosebud, where General Terry had advanced ahead on a supply steamer to rendezvous with General Gibbon's forces. Believing them close, we pushed on through the night until we reached the Yellowstone and set up camp, confident of intercepting the steamer if it were downstream. At dawn, we resumed the march and soon spotted General Gibbon's supply wagons with the Far West steamer trailing. Messengers carried Reno's report of a large Indian trail. Shortly after, we camped near the Rosebud's mouth and held a council of war to review Reno's findings. The next day, plans for the campaign were finalized. I recall a final meeting aboard the steamer on the evening of the 21st, when Custer received his final orders, much as you've described. When asked when he'd arrive at the Little Bighorn's mouth, General Gibbon answered, "Not before noon on the 26th. During the discussion, Custer was offered a 2nd Battalion of cavalry and artillery from the steamer, but he declined, trusting in his regiment's strength and fearing artillery would slow us near hostile ground. Many speculated this decision was calculated to ensure independent command, as he had enjoyed before. His wishes were granted. On June 22nd, we assembled before Generals Terry and Gibbon and set off along the trail Reno identified, following it steadily except to find suitable camps. No reconnaissance of the surrounding terrain was conducted, nor messengers sent to Gibbon despite Scout George Herendeen's availability. Our pace remained determined until the evening of the 24th, when we seemed to halt but were instructed to remain saddled for a night march. From the moment we left the Rosebud, Custer's familiar intensity returned, focused solely on finding and engaging the enemy. The trail led away from the Missouri River and, according to Bloody Knife and our Crow Scouts, pointed to about 1,000 to 1,200 warriors, mostly fighting men from the Missouri settlements. Around 11 p.m., we prepared the horses and formed up. Meanwhile, an advanced party of Crow and Ree Scouts with officers like Varnum and Hare pushed forward to examine the divide and locate the enemy. We left camp aiming to cross the high ground and reach the Little Bighorn foothills before dawn. The terrain slowed us, and by daybreak we found ourselves in a gully beneath cliffs, unsure how near the river lay. Overnight, Custer had ridden ahead to join the scouts, who at first light reported spotting the village. Custer reportedly doubted them. Signs soon suggested we had been discovered. A recovery party found Indians examining a lost ammunition box. This spurred the general to act swiftly. As troops assembled into detachments, interpreter Mitch Bouyer warned Custer of overwhelming enemy numbers. Custer challenged Bouyer's courage. Bouyer vowed to follow anywhere, but insisted entering the valley would mean death. Shortly after, I was ordered to serve as orderly to Lieutenant Cook, assisting with any tasks. Exhausted troopers rested while their horses grazed. Custer then ordered the advance, declaring that the first ready company would take the right flank. Quickly, we mounted and moved out. Benteen's battalion was sent left to scout, Reno was to follow the trail, and Custer led 5 companies right, with McDougal managing the pack train behind. We pressed on, but rough ground forced Custer's column left, where we joined Reno's men ascending a steep ridge. At the summit, we saw Reno's troops below on the trail and Benteen's far left, scouting the cliffs. Custer's excitement grew as he spotted a dust cloud in the valley. With his bugler, he rode to an outcrop, waving his hat as if in greeting. Returning, he told Captain Keogh, "The hostiles are running. If we push, I'd sacrifice half our horses to overtake them." Keogh calmly replied, "General, these men and horses will give all they have." The trumpet then sounded the charge. We raced along the river, attempting several approaches into the valley, each failing. Custer consulted Cook, who hastily penned a message. I was given the dispatch. "Deliver to Major Reno. Stay with him until we join, then return." As I sped off, the column vanished into the gullies. Alone, I pressed toward Reno, dodging only scattered shots. I reached Reno as his men dismounted for skirmish lines. He read the message and pocketed it. Soon, our scouts fled in panic. Warriors surrounded us. We fell back toward the timber, losing mounts to fire and panic. In the woods, we regrouped briefly, gaining cover. We saw Captain Moylan readying to move. Wallace asked Captain French for orders. French said none had come but advised preparing for action. We found some 15 men without mounts. McIntosh took a horse from McCormick, who grimly remarked that dying afoot or mounted was all the same. Expecting an attack, we were stunned to find Reno leading a retreat across the river bluffs. Warriors concentrated fire on us, but losses were light. Claims that Reno fired his revolver wildly are false. That weapon stayed with Benteen's family for years. My horse was shot, and I tumbled into sagebrush. Wallace urged me toward cover, and I ran for the trees. From there, I saw Hodgson struggle across the river, wounded. He clutched another saddle, but was hit again and fell. He drew his pistol and fired defiantly before collapsing. As I hid, warriors looted the dead. Gunfire from downstream signaled Custer's fight. Many warriors rushed toward it. I joined Scout Herendeen and found our stranded troopers deeper in the woods. The Indians set fires, but smoke helped cover our river crossing. A Crow scout guided us to our lines. Later, a white cloth signaled from our old position. Hare made contact, and the stranded men rejoined us. I last saw McIntosh riding ahead, his lariat trailing dangerously. His body lay where he fell. The next day we discovered his fate. On the bluffs, Captain Weir tried to advance toward the gunfire, defying orders. The command followed, except Benteen's and Godfrey's men who held formation. We met Weir's troop falling back under heavy attack. Forming a defensive line, we covered their retreat. Colonel Benteen then said grimly to Wallace, "We can't retreat forever. Hold your ground here." Wallace nodded, bleak but resolute.
I had no unit remaining. Only 2 men stood with me. Benteen let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Then fall in with those 2. I'll fill you in once I have a clearer grasp of our circumstances." That small handful of soldiers formed the core of what became our defensive stand. Bit by bit, more men found their way to us as we sheltered behind sagebrush, hastily building breastworks and firing back as best we could. We clung to that desperate position until night mercifully eased the fighting. Through the darkness, we strengthened our perimeter, throwing together a rough corral for the animals and a field hospital, while scraping out what shallow trenches the conditions allowed. When dawn broke, the battle resumed with the same unrelenting ferocity until about 3 p.m., when, quite unexpectedly, the warriors began dismantling their lodges and withdrawing upriver, frustratingly out of reach. Twice that afternoon, brave volunteers ventured out for water, both times drawing hostile fire. In the second attempt, tragedy struck Trooper Madden of K Company suffered a severe leg wound that demanded amputation. That night, we bore him to the surgeons, who carried out the operation. The next day, General Terry's and Gibbon's forces arrived, bringing much-needed reinforcements and, with heavy hearts, confirmation of General Custer's fate. On June 28th, after seeing our wounded ferried across the river, we returned to bury the dead. With few exceptions, including Custer himself, the bodies bore unmistakable signs of mutilation after death. In my many discussions with officers and seasoned frontiermen after the battle, 3 grave missteps were universally agreed upon as leading to the calamity. The first, and likely most disastrous, was the breaking up of our force into 4 separate detachments, scattered nearly 15 miles from the intended field of battle, all without dependable intelligence about the enemy's strength or position. This division left each group dangerously isolated. Second, Custer's arrival in the contested area, almost a full day ahead of schedule, destroyed any hope of a coordinated effort. Lastly, the enormous loss of cavalry horses and the depletion of our reserve ammunition fatally weakened our ability to fight when it mattered most. Since more capable minds have thoroughly analyzed these failures in depth, I will not dwell further on them. My personal impression of General Custer was that of a leader whose courage verged on recklessness, a man who often rushed into danger without fully weighing the enemy's strength. It remains my belief that his choices against the orders given may have been driven by the deep shame he suffered following his public rebuke by the President. Perhaps he aimed to redeem himself with a decisive battlefield victory, reminiscent of his famed success at Washita, a triumph that might have restored his standing as the nation's foremost Indian campaigner and military hero. Whatever his reasons, history must note that he met his end with undeniable gallantry, falling with honor among the loyal veterans who had followed him so often to glory. Respectfully, yours, Theo W. Golden. I hope this first-hand account sheds meaningful light on the battle at Little Bighorn and the wider Sioux campaign of 1876. History often favors legend over truth, but sometimes a forgotten voice like Theodore Golden's breaks through the silence and forces us to confront uncomfortable realities. Custer's last stand was not a glorious moment of heroism. It was a chain reaction of pride, miscalculation, and ignored warnings. And for the men who followed him, it ended in fire, blood, and silence. What would have happened if Custer had waited? If he had listened? If he had chosen caution over conquest? That's for you to decide. If this account changed how you see Custer's last stand, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to iRich History, and hit the bell so you never miss the stories that history almost erased. Because the past isn't dead, it's waiting to be heard.